As a project manager, I've done multi-million dollar projects, I've done multi-billion dollar projects, and in this video, I'm going to react to some of the world's most expensive construction mistakes. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe. It will help the channel tremendously.
Human mistakes are almost inevitable and happen every now and then. However, you might think that large construction megaprojects are very carefully thought out.
So yes, depending on the size of the project, the design process typically takes months. The planning approval process with the authorities typically takes months, if not years. So it is a long process.
Yet, this is not always the case. In this video, we're going to take a look at how billion-dollar mistakes were made, construction sites were delayed for decades, and a skyscraper in New York nearly fell over and caused a disaster. Number 5. 20 Fenchurch Street. Taking its name from its address, the 20 Fenchurch Street building is a commercial skyscraper in London. The building was sold to a Hong Kong manufacturing company named
the Asian sauce company
for around $1.8 billion, which is a record price for a single building in the UK. After its completion in 2014, the skyscraper was not only referred to as a walkie-talkie due to its distinctive shape, but was also named the ugliest new building in Great Britain. However, the real problem with the building was elsewhere. At 20 Fenchurch Street, a comparatively not so expensive but unusual mistake was made in the planning process. Similar to many modern skyscrapers, the walkie-talkie has a large glass front that reflects the sunlight. However, unlike the normal high-rise buildings that usually have straight walls, this led to a problem. During the day, the sun shines on the south side of the building, and unfortunately, this side has a slightly concave curvature. Consequently, the walkie-talkie concentrates the sun rays onto the street and the houses on the opposite street side. In the summer, this meant that the sun's rays were reflected 6 times stronger than normal. As a result, this generated extreme heat that melted even parked cars.
So I'm surprised this happened. Typically, once the concept design of the building is completed, ready to be submitted to authorities for permit to start construction, for high-rise building at least, one of the requirements is for the applicant to demonstrate how the new building impacts on surrounding buildings in terms of sunshade and how it impacts on footpath. One of the analysis that needs to be done by the applicant is solar glare. If the glare from the sun is too intense, there are facade treatments that could be placed onto the buildings. You would want to resolve all these issues before construction even starts.
And caused cracks on the sidewalks. In a Sky News video, a reporter fried an egg across the street using only the reflected sunlight.
Jim Watterson is a reporter on City AM. He's just cooking up some lunch here. I can't even lift it up, it's actually that hot. He's just fried an egg here on the streets of London. He's just putting that in there for his story. It is so hot. It is so hot.
That's crazy for an egg to be fried, cooked, and firm. That's what, 70 degrees Celsius, and that's scorching hot.
The building's architect, Raphael Vignoli, also designed the Vdara Hotel in Las Vegas, which had a similar problem with sunlight reflection. In an interview, he mentioned that horizontal louve windows on the south side should prevent this problem. However, they were removed at some point during the planning process. Vignoli also said that he didn't know it was going to get that hot, and when he first came to London years ago, it wasn't like this. In the end, a sunshade was installed, which ultimately fixed the problem, costing around $14 million.
That's an expensive sunshade. So could this be avoided? Well, my personal view is yes. For a project manager when running a building project like this is to consider the daily operation after construction finishes, the environmental impacts, etc. I'm not sure if this was actually completed.
Number 4. Stuttgart 21. Stuttgart 21 is a giant railway megaproject in Germany. The project is one of the most interesting construction sites in the country, as an entire train station has to be rotated by 90 degrees.
So that is crazy for a building to be rotated by 90 degrees. That's a lot of work.
In reverse. This costs valuable time, which is why the government decided to transform the train station into a transit station. This way, the station can be part of a continuous 1,500-kilometer-long high-speed rail line that connects Paris, Stuttgart, Munich, Vienna, and Bratislava. When construction began in 2010, it was planned that the Stuttgart 21 should cost no more than $5.4 billion.
Even though it's a big sum of money based on my past experience on rail station projects, that is not surprising.
The project's completion has been delayed numerous times due to various reasons. As of now, it is expected that the train station will open at the end of 2025, more than 6 years later than initially planned.
So one of the challenges with construction is that time is money spent, and for every day staff and equipment are on site, even though the project is at a standstill, is a cost the builder has to pay, especially for a fixed price contract. And on top of that, typically on most construction contracts, there are liquidated damages, which the builder has to pay if they do not meet the project completion date. So for a 6-year delay, this will be bad, and I presume some contract negotiation would have taken place. Otherwise, it will be really bad for the builder.
In addition to protests by many Germans and environmental activists, Stuttgart 21 was further delayed due to difficulties with the tunnel construction. Nearly 60 kilometers, or 37 miles of tunnels, have to be built to connect Stuttgart's new station with the existing rail network. Unfortunately, a special type of soil which swells once it comes into contact with water makes the work very challenging.
So in most instances, all soil testing would have been done in the early days, even before the design starts. I'm surprised if these tough soil conditions were not expected by the design team or the builder, and why the builder did not account for this in their construction program is surprising.
This could lead to the problem that the tunnels have to be renewed over and over again. Another surprising but comparatively not so bad problem occurred in 2017. Due to the construction project, thousands of strictly protected lizards had to be relocated on the route from Ulm to Stuttgart. The project management has estimated that this incident will cost $18 million. In some difficult cases, the responsible company has charged costs of up to $10,000 per lizard.
So authorities who give approval for construction to start will typically request for an environmental impact statement, what is called EIS. There are typically specialists and engineers in-house within the authorities department who would review the construction plans before it starts. And if the project do impacts on the environment, it's something that the project manager and the delivery team will have to manage.
Independent estimates suggest that the cost could soar to nearly $12 billion by the time the project is completed. Number 3. Citigroup Center.
Interestingly, the Citigroup Center was a case study that I did back in university. There are a lot of lessons learned from this building on how tall buildings is designed moving forward, and how we need to be really thorough with checking a design to make sure that we've dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Till then, the engineers estimated the stability of the building by calculating the winds that came perpendicular to the building. However, they didn't calculate the quarter winds that hit the corners. The problem was discovered when civil engineer William Le Mesurier was having a discussion with civil engineering student Diane Hartley from Princeton. She claimed that the building was unstable and could fall over at any moment during a strong wind. For this reason, the engineers have started to carry out tests for structural safety. They quickly discovered that college student Diane Hartley was right. Le Mesurier estimated that a wind that could cause the building to collapse occurs every 55 years on average. However, if the installed mass damper could not work due to a power failure, a wind that occurs every 16 years on average would already be strong enough. A fall of the building would have fatal consequences. In contrast to a demolition, the building would not collapse in on itself, but instead topple over. This could create a domino effect and cause surrounding skyscrapers in New York to be damaged or even collapse. A horror scenario which had to be avoided at all costs. And it got even worse. Hurricane Ella was making its way directly to the city. Engineers had to do something, and quickly. As they didn't want to cause a mass panic, only very few people, including New York City's mayor, knew about the problem, and no public statement was made. The engineers worked at night for 3 months to solve the problem. Ultimately, they welded 2-inch steel plates over the bolted joints in the building to increase the stability of the Citigroup Center. Fortunately, Hurricane Ella did not reach the region, and the multi-million-dollar repair was completed in October 1978. 17 years later, the whole story was published in an article in The New Yorker, after Le Messurier casually talked about it at a party. Number 2. Jeddah Tower. Formerly known as the Kingdom Tower, the Jeddah Tower is located in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. At the same height as 2.5 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other, the Jeddah Tower was to become the first 1-kilometer high building in the world.
That's crazy. I like the idea that we are pushing the limits of engineering, but the fact that this building is 1 kilometer tall and is designed to be more than twice the height of the Empire State Building is mind-blowing. Just a measure of how far we've come in terms of technology.
The skyscraper is part of Saudi Arabia's push to diversify the country's economy towards tourism, similar to Dubai and the famous Burj Khalifa. Construction of the Jeddah Tower began in 2013 and was planned to be completed by 2018. However, the 2017 Saudi Arabian purge caused major construction problems, and work on the building stopped with only a third of the tower completed. Major investors of the project, including Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, were imprisoned by the Saudi Arabian government.
No.
After the investors were released a few months later, construction was still on hold, and there was no official date for its completion. At the time of stopping, the tower had already risen to a height of 252 meters. COVID-19 has further delayed plans for the construction to restart in 2020, as it would not be safe for workers to work in such conditions. Since then, there has been no progress on the construction site. If the project gets abandoned midway through its construction, there would be a loss of at least $1 billion.
It is mad to spend so much money on the building, the design, the planning, etc., just for it to be abandoned. It's mad.
Number 1. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport.
The famous
Berlin-Brandenburg
Berlin
Airport is an international airport project in Germany. When construction began in 2006, the project was originally scheduled to cost around $2.4 billion and be opened in 2011. However, what followed were years of delays, caused by embarrassing failures and corruption. Consequently, the construction deadlines could not be met in any way. The first delay occurred in 2010, about 1 year before the original opening date, when the bankruptcy of an involved planning company was announced. Further delays happened due to non-compliant fire protection requirements. But not just that. The airport also failed the acceptance test required to operate as an airport.
So once a building finishes construction and achieves practical completion, the building surveyor will issue a building permit to say this building is constructed to the design intent, it has demonstrated compliance to standards, and it is safe to be occupied. It then typically goes through a 12 months defects liability period where the builder is required to rectify at their own cost any identified construction defects on site. And this could be fire protection, structural column cracks, etc.
In addition, a total of 67 kilometers or 37 miles of cooling pipes without thermal insulation were installed. To solve this mistake, dozens of walls were torn down and the pipes were replaced. To date, the costs have more than tripled to a total of $8.3 billion. 14 years after the start of construction and 9 years after the originally planned opening date, the Berlin-Brandenburg Airport went into operation in 2020. However, that is not the end of the airport's failure. Despite its opening, the airport is unlikely to be able to finance itself.
I think that's just really bad timing that it opened in 2020 during COVID. It's just unfortunate timing.
Both during and after the pandemic, more funds will be needed to prevent bankruptcy, which could cost an additional $2 billion.
So one of the things I recommend to all my clients before starting a project is to consider all risk, be it financial, design, or construction, and make sure that they are comfortable with those risks and the strategies in place to reduce or eliminate the risk, including an exit strategy, because especially with big projects, it is a long journey. I hope you've enjoyed the video and learned something new today. Until then, signing off for now.